Hello guys, Dan here, and welcome to a short graphics video that I've got for you today. Essentially going to be talking about my graphic settings now that we're on 1440p and how they might help you. Alright, this is no way a best settings guide or anything like that. Okay, this is simply the settings that I like to use in order to make the game look good as well as perform as well as it can. Alright guys, so yeah, let's jump straight in. If you want the too long didn't watch version, okay, what you can do guys, just hang around for a moment and I'll get them up on the screen for you right here. So as you can see, right here are my graphic settings, and I'm going to be going through all these settings in much more detail later down the line, but for the time being, just have a look, screenshot it if you like. Alright, okay, so we're on 1440p, screen mode is borderless, 16:9 aspect ratio, no VSync and no multi-monitor support. I don't think that's available anyway at the moment. Yeah, alright, don't worry about this for now. Okay, so we're on texture quality high, shadows high, object LOD on 2, overall visibility on 1000, anti-aliasing is off, resampling is off, DLSS is on quality. Now I just want to take a moment to explain DLSS just for a sec. Okay, DLSS is an absolutely fantastic tool, and I'll show you in a moment, but if I turn DLSS off, not only does the game look worse, but I also get worse frames as well, okay, because it's using much more of the graphics card resources, okay, which is then giving me less frames. So DLSS really is the unsung hero when it comes to getting this game to run well on my system with my settings. Alright, and we'll speak about that a little bit more in the future. Okay, HBAO, which is Ambient Occlusion, that is on high. SSR, Screen Space Reflections, is on high. And Anisotropic Filtering on. Reflex Low Latency is off. The reason why I keep this off is because I find that the game runs worse. Okay, generally speaking, the game doesn't run as well for me. Not quite sure why, but it doesn't tend to give me any benefit. So I just leave it off for now, and it feels absolutely fine. Sharpness is 0. Okay. Lobby FPS limit is 60, of course. Game FPS limit is 100. Now, the reason why I limit FPS in the game, okay, is because I need to leave some headroom for the GPU to encode video for the stream. Okay, I run a 2 PC setup, and the game PC, now that we're on 1440p, the game PC does need to do a little bit more work in order to encode that video and send it out to the stream PC, where it goes into the capture card at 1080p 60. Alright, I'm working on a way to essentially free up this headroom, which will allow me to run more frames without the stream looking choppy. But for now, that's what I'm doing. Alright, and you'll see that we're regularly hitting the limit. Even in online raids and stuff like that. Alright guys, so it's, you know, it's not a huge issue at this stage. All the checkboxes at the bottom are turned off. The only checkbox that I use will be Chromatic Aberrations, and I only ever use that when I'm doing photos, okay? So you may have seen some of the images that I've posted on social media, okay guys, for wallpapers and stuff like that. I use Chromatic Aberration only on those images, alright? Because it just gives the impression that it's looking through a lens. Alright, so when you take a photo on a camera, okay, generally speaking, you'll get some sort of chromatic aberration in there because like lens distortion and stuff like that. What that does in the game is it just gives the impression that the photo's been taken, or like the screen's been taken on a camera. That sort of thing. It's a pretty cool little setting, but I wouldn't worry about it for in-game use. Alright, so we'll have a little run around, okay, and just keep an eye on the utilization on the left-hand side of the screen. And we've got the frame rate on the top right. Let me remind you guys that we are offline. Okay, we are offline right now. Alright. And the reason why we are offline is because we are simply just testing the graphics settings. Alright, and how they have a effect on our system. So as you can see, we're pretty much sitting on the cap all the time. Okay, regardless of where we look on the map. Now, the only real time that we're dropping frames, okay, the only real time that we're losing frames is when we ADS down the length of the map, okay, with a magnifying optics. So you can see in the top right-hand corner there, we are starting to see a few frames lost, okay, and it's because we're basically just aiming down the length of the map. Alright, we're aiming down the whole length of the map, and it's obviously, you know, rendering everything on the way. As you can see, guys, on the left hand side with the utilization, all right, we're not massively pushing our GPU to the limit. Okay, and this is very, very important for people who want to stream and are using the GPU to encode video. All right, guys, so those of you that do use the NVENC encoder, okay, you may find that giving your PC, giving your GPU a little bit of headroom just allows you to stream a little bit more smoothly and help your system work a little bit better. All right, I don't like to generally max out my hardware as is. I don't like pushing my PC to the limit at all times. Okay, guys, I do like to sit about 60, 70, 80% utilization where possible. You know, just to give it a little bit of breathing room so it's not absolutely maxed out all the time. So what we can do is we can have a little look into the graphic settings in a little bit more detail now that we've got the basics down. All right, so for example, okay, what I'd like you to do is just have a look at this little vehicle in front of us. You can see that it's quite boxy. Okay, you can see that the LOD, you might say, the level of detail is fairly low. Okay, so when we increase the LOD in our settings, we should see the car look a lot better from range. Let's try it out. Ah, much better. Okay, not only is the glass now translucent, but you can actually see the shape of the vehicle. Okay, you can make out the lines of the vehicle much better. Okay, and that level of detail is much greater at further distances. Now, another interesting setting is one called overall visibility. Now, there are a couple of misconceptions with overall visibility, and I aim to clear that up now, ideally. All right, guys, so if you look into the distance, okay, you'll see there is a nice big warehouse with a big chimney. All right, now, our visibility setting at the moment is 1,000 meters. Okay, so we can see objects that are 1,000 meters away. Now, if we change that to 400, which is the lowest setting, the next one down, okay, we should see that a lot of those items, a lot of those objects in the distance actually do disappear. Okay, and you can see that there's no longer a chimney there. Again, we can no longer see the warehouse. Okay, and you might notice as well, it seems that there has been a slight decrease in our GPU usage. We've gone from about 84% or so to about 81. Okay. And the same goes the other way. All right, guys. So anything that is over 400 meters away, you're not going to see. Okay, and you can see the pop-in as we turn around and look around there. You can see the pop-in actually occurring right in front of your eyes. All right, guys. So this is another setting that will just allow you to, you know, gain that little bit more headroom, get your game running slightly better if you are having trouble. Okay, so that's just your overall visibility. Here's the good one. We're going to talk about DLSS now, which stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. And it's an NVIDIA technology, which essentially, well, let me just turn it off and on and you'll see how it works. All right, so just have a look at the edges. All right, have a look at the edges of the wall here. Have a look at the detail on the train, okay, and have a look at the foliage too. Looks fairly nice and soft at the moment, okay, fairly natural. Watch what happens when we turn off DLSS. I'd also like you to check out our frame rate as well as our GPU utilization. Okay, so what have we noticed? Our GPU is rocketed up to 100% utilization, okay, and the game looks worse in the sense of a lot of jagged edges. Foliage looks all strange. There's almost too much detail in the foliage, which kind of doesn't really look nice, especially from further away. Okay, edges of the train, you can see the diagonal line there. Okay, you can see the aliasing. Okay, so essentially DLSS doubles up as a kind of anti-aliasing system for you as well. Okay, and it will soften those edges and make things look a lot more natural. All right, but the most important part to understand is that we are literally sitting on 100% GPU utilization at all times and achieving a frame rate of 84. Okay, 84. And again, if we ADS down the length of the map, that's going to drop even more. That drops by about 20 FPS on ADS there. Okay, which is a much bigger drop than we had previously. Okay, guys, so for that reason, on 1440p, I definitely recommend running DLSS on quality. Okay, it will just allow you to increase your frame rate as well as make the game look better. Now, it's not without its side effects. Okay, you will find that there is some issues with magnifying scopes and stuff like that. It's not ideal. sometimes you will find that when you're scoping in or tracking a moving target, you will get this kind of like heat haze effect. Now, hopefully this is something that will be fixed in the future. However, I haven't found it to be too game breaking, and it hasn't put me off too much. Okay, not nearly as game breaking as how the game looks with absolutely no anti-aliasing whatsoever. Now, because we're on 100% utilization, if we were to add some anti-aliasing just to counter the effects of having no AA whatsoever, let's say we'll go for TAA, okay, temporal anti-aliasing. Okay, we are going to drop frames even more, and we're still sitting on that 100% utilization. Okay, guys, and the game generally looks fairly blurry, which is not ideal. If we wanted to ADS down the length of the map, okay, we're going to be seeing a lot more frame drops, taking us down to 60 again. Okay, but again, guys, we are sitting at 100% utilization. Okay, this is not good, especially if you're trying to stream. All right, so what we'll do, we'll remove our anti-aliasing and we'll smash DLSS back on to quality, okay, which is the best quality setting that we're going to get. Okay, DLSS quality will look the best that it can, whilst giving us a performance boost. Okay, so we're back on DLSS quality, guys, sitting back on 100 FPS with 80% utilization. Now, just for argument's sake, why don't we uncap the FPS and just sort of see what we might achieve? Let's have a look. Okay, we're going to stick up to 144. Alright, so our GPU is rocketed up to 100% utilization, and we're actually getting 124 FPS. Okay, when we ADS, we will be sitting at about 86. So that is a huge drop there. That's about 40 FPS. That's about 30-40 FPS drop. Okay, now the game does look amazing. Okay, it does look good as we're looking around. It's super smooth, super responsive. It's really, really nice. But of course, you know, we don't want to be sitting on 100% utilization, okay? Especially when we're sending out video to another source. Alright, guys, so that's why I capped my frames. It just allows a little bit of headroom there. Alright, so let's stick that back on. Back down to 80% or so with a nice 100 FPS, nice and solid. Okay, so ambient occlusion and screen space reflections, guys. These are what I like to call prettiness settings. Alright, so let's try and find a location where we can demonstrate some ambient occlusion. Alright, cool. So, we found a little shaded area, okay, with a little bit of light as well. This is a perfect little spot to demonstrate how ambient occlusion works. So essentially what ambient occlusion does is it adds depth to objects by using a little bit of shading in cracks and crevices and stuff like that. Okay, so where two pieces of geometry meet, okay, or add some shading and some shadow just to give it that sense of depth. Okay, so a couple of things I'd like you to look at is this big green slab of wall, alright, and the weapon that we're carrying. Alright, so we're going to turn ambient occlusion off, and I just want you to check out how it affects the scene in front of us. Okay, check it out. Alright, so as you can see, the weapon in our hands looks a lot flatter. There's a lot less depth to it, and it looks a lot less pleasing to the eye. The same can be said for the objects in front of us. There's no shading whatsoever in the crack, in the crevice in between the two joins there. And it just kind of makes the scene look a little bit flatter. Alright, ambient occlusion is an absolutely fantastic tool to create depth and just add that extra sense of sort of realism and immersion into the scene. Alright, so let's turn it back on. Much better. Okay, that looks so much nicer to the eye, and I prefer it being on. Alright guys, I know that a lot of you competitive players out there, you know, will turn everything off, but I think Tarkov is a beautiful game, and I like to showcase just how good it can look. Okay guys, here we go. This is one of my favorite settings in any game ever. Okay, this is screen space reflection, also known as SSR. Now what I'd like you to do is pay attention to the puddle in front of us, okay, and we're going to turn on we're going to turn off SSR and see how it affects the scene. As you can see guys, there are absolutely no reflections whatsoever to the front. Okay, so again, this is what I call a prettiness setting. Alright guys, absolutely, you know, not needed, but really adds to the life of the game and the scenery. Okay, so let's turn it back on. Alright, so it just adds to the location and really helps to paint a picture and add to the, you know, the overall realistic sort of nature of the game. All right, guys. Generally, I'm a big fan of screen space reflections in any game that I play. Quick note, however, SSR on Ultra will take a lot more resources. Okay, SSR on Ultra will absolutely tank your resources, guys. And it doesn't look too much better than high. Okay, so if you do want, you know, those nice reflections, but you don't want to absolutely destroy your system, okay, SSR high, I found, is really nice. Ultra is great, don't get me wrong, but you will see, generally speaking, you know, your frames will suffer because of it. Okay, guys, SSR Ultra is, it's like borderline RTX reflections. All right, but it does obviously look amazing. Okay, next up, what have we got? We are now on Anisotropic Filtering. This might be difficult to demonstrate, but I'll give it a go. Anisotropic Filtering essentially, okay, adds depth to 2D objects when viewed at an angle. So for example, we've got this paving stones in front of us. Okay, let's turn off Anisotropic Filtering and see how it looks. Okay, as you can see, we've lost all that nice detail. Okay, they look extremely flat. Little paving stones, little slabby things, like the bricks. They look super, super flat, especially the further away that we get. Okay, especially further away that we get. Okay, we are looking very, very dull and very smooth and very 2D. Okay, don't worry about my PMCs just coming down from SJ6. All right, let's turn it back on. Okay, as you can see, it still retains that detail and depth, especially at those more sharper angles. Okay, so we've got that detail back on the brickwork. All right, it looks much nicer, much more pleasing to the eye, and retains that detail, just adding a little bit of realism to the scene. Now, let's talk about NVIDIA Reflex low latency. This is a tough one to explain. It's more of a feel for me. Okay, it's more of a feel. Generally speaking, I have seen frame drops, stutters, and different kind of jumps, and just a general feeling of unresponsiveness with NVIDIA Reflex low latency. Some of you guys might absolutely love it. Okay, you might swear by it, and that is absolutely fine. It's one of those settings, if it works for you, go for it, no problem. You know, keep it on, absolutely do your thing. Okay, but for me personally, low latency has not resulted in a good experience, so I do not use it. Sharpness. Okay, sharpness speaks for itself. Okay, I run sharpness as 0 just because it looks better on stream. Okay, and I don't really like those jagged sort of edges and stuff like that. I do find it to be quite fatiguing on the eyes. Let's max out our sharpness and see how it looks. It basically just simulates being on painkillers all the time. All right, I just can't deal with it. Okay, it hurts my eyes. Okay, this video will probably look absolutely horrendous now because of all the jagged edges and stuff. It's just not for me. Okay, I genuinely enjoy having that down minimum. Okay, and just having those softer edges looks a lot more natural and it's much more pleasing to the eye, in my opinion. Now, a couple of these checkboxes at the bottom are, again, a lot of these are prettiness settings. For example, Z-blur. Okay, I'm not 100% sure if that's implemented at the moment. No. Okay, so what Z-blur does, okay, if you see the part of the weapon that's closest to our eyes, what Z-blur does is essentially just creates a depth of field effect around that area just to give an extra sense of depth. At the moment, it does not seem to be working. Chromatic Aberrations, again, we mentioned it briefly earlier. Chromatic Aberrations essentially blurs the edges of the screen. So if you look at the extremes in our peripheral vision, so the trees up to the top left, the chimney on the top right, okay, guys, you will see that there is a kind of, well, there's a chromatic aberration surrounding the edges of those objects. Okay, I like to run this for photo mode whenever I'm doing, like, taking photos for social media and stuff like that. But in-game, playing the game, I don't like running chromatic aberration. Okay, guys, give it a try for yourself, see what you think. All right, it looks great, like I say, for still images, but for me, personally, I don't like running it in the game. Mip Streaming. This is essentially texture streaming, guys. Those of you that have systems that may be struggling, Mip Streaming may be for you. Essentially, what this does is it streams the textures as it needs them, okay? Rather than load all the textures at the same time. You may find issues with textures looking like Play-Doh, okay, looking plasticky as they're trying to load in and stuff like that. but that is a side effect of streaming textures as you go. Okay, so keep it off if you want to load all the textures at the same time, and you're happy to do so, and your system can handle it. Turn it on if you do have a weaker system, which is struggling to load all the textures at the same time. Noise speaks for itself. Okay, this just adds like a film grain style noise. I would not recommend using it. It just looks a bit messy, to be honest, and I wouldn't even recommend using it for like taking screenshots either. Grass shadows, this is an interesting one. Okay, grass shadows is quite interesting. Essentially, you know, does exactly what it says on the tin. Okay, it adds shadows to grass. Adds that extra sense of depth. Looks pretty cool. But to be honest, I don't really go around looking at stuff in the grass, so I turn it off. All right, just so it doesn't, you know, take any resources. High quality color. Okay, so the way high quality color works, and the way that I heard Nikita explain it, is it kind of just adds little gradients in between the color space that we have, which is like RGB. Okay, so it's like 256 or something. I'm not a huge nerd when it comes to color spaces and stuff like that, but essentially there's only so many colors that the game can deliver. Okay, so what high quality color does, as far as I'm aware, is it does add gradients in between those colors, and it results in a smoother color experience. Okay, it can be most noticed with things like the sky and essentially, you know, flat areas of color where, you know, the color does change from different shades. You may notice without it on that you do see like lines in the color where it is changing shades, but with high quality color you'll probably notice that it's a lot smoother. It does take a little bit of your resources. I genuinely haven't seen a problem with it, so I generally run it off. Flash indicator, guys. Flash indicator, what that does is, I believe it's something to do with the low latency setting, and essentially it just measures, with monitors that support it, it just measures the amount of time in between you clicking the mouse and it displaying on your screen. Alright guys, so if you want to have a play around with that and see what your latency is, it might be worth a shot. But it is only available on compatible monitors as far as I'm aware. Alright, well that just about does it. Okay guys, thank you very much indeed for watching. Okay, I very much appreciate it. If there's any questions that you may have, because I know that we've gone pretty fast and furious. This video was much longer than I was planning it to be, but we did go into much more detail than I was expecting. I hope you guys found it useful, okay? I hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I say, if you do have any questions about any of the settings, or you're struggling to get your game running as nicely as you'd like it to, please feel free to comment below. Okay, send me a message on Discord. Come and see me on stream. Okay, twitch.tv/DanExert. We're live Monday to Friday. All right, so if you want to come and say hello, and you want to come and, you know, give us some of your ideas, or you're having any issues and stuff like that, please guys, do not hesitate to get in touch. All right, thank you so much indeed for watching this video. I very much appreciate you coming by, and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Thanks guys.